Okay guys, so as I have said in my previous video, I let you know that if you are low income and have very low income, you can get approved with a USDA direct loan, which is also the Section 502 direct loan program. So here is the information regarding the credit requirements. Now, you do not have to have a 640 to get approved. But you do have to show that you have ability and willingness to meet debt obligations. So they said credit history for the last 3 years is evaluated. Now, what they will do is they will use past 3 years. They will look past 3 years. If it's like a large collection, they will look into it to try to find out what is going on. So if you have a collection that is older than 3 years, they may need an explanation letter to find out what was going on. Now let's go to the credit reports that they use. A tri-merge credit report. Also a checklist of things that you need to include with your application. And in some states, they are community property states. So what that means is if you have a wife or husband and they are not applying, but you are, because they may not apply because they are not working or whatever the situation may be, then they will still have to give their information in a community property state. Now, they do not have to run their credit, but they do have to include a copy of all 3 of their credit reports. Not necessarily the score, just the reports showing what is on the credit, because that way they are able to include the debt to income ratio for that non-purchasing spouse. Now, they cannot deny you because of the non-purchasing spouse in the debt, but they can work through the total debt. And that way they can give you a subsidy if needed for your mortgage payments. Now, if you have 3 scores, they will use the middle score. If you have 2 scores, they will use the lower score of the 2. If you have 1 score, they would just use the 1 score. This is an example of applicants that applied. But as you see here, the middle score is used for John, and the lower of the 2 is used for Mary. For applicant B, he had 1 score, which was 580, and Jerry had a middle score of 740. Now, just because Jerry has 740 doesn't mean that they're going to be automatically approved. They have to validate the scores. And the same with John and Mary. Just because John has a 640 doesn't mean that they're going to be automatically approved, because there is another applicant. And this applicant does not have a 640. The other Mary does not have a 640. But even if they both did have a 640, they still need to be able to validate the score with the 2 trade lines. Here is where it says that it has to be at least 2 trade lines that they need to use to validate the score, and it had to be open and active for the last 12 months of the last 24 months. So as you see here for John, the only thing that will be one of the scores cannot be validated because he only had 1 account, which was Verizon, that will qualify as a trade line. Now, Jerry had 2 accounts that will qualify, which will validate the score, which was the MasterCard and Lowe's. The account has been open for 24 months with MasterCard, and the payments have been paid on time within the last 12 months. And Lowe's has been paid for 24 months out of the 24 months that it was open, and it was all on time. So her score could be validated. John had a valid score of 640. That's all that he had. But you're supposed to also have 2 trade lines to validate the score. Mary had a score under 640, and she had only 1 trade line that was open for 6 months. She had a collection account with a balance of $500, and she had no alternative credit sources that was not reporting on her credit that she paid on time within the last 12 months and it was open for 24 months. She didn't have any of that information. And that could be, alternative credit could be phone bill, and it had to be open for 24 months and paid on time within the last 12 months. It could be a phone bill. It could be a cable bill. It can be a credit card that's not reporting on the credit. It can be a water bill. It could be a light bill. Any bill like that showing that it was paid on time. And then she had a collection balance. Now, if Mary had only one trade line and then she had alternative credit, then she could have, if she had alternative credit and didn't have an account, a balance of $500, she could have got approved. But the thing is, John also had to be able to have a valid score. So because he had a 640, he still would have needed 2 trade lines. And if he did not have 2 trade lines, he would need at least two forms. If he had a rental verification, he would need 2 forms of alternative credit. But if he did not have a rental verification, he would need to have 3 alternative credit sources to be able to validate his score. Now, in this case, the application will be denied due to lack of acceptable credit because both applicants do not meet the credit requirements. So just because you have a 640 doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get approved. You have to be able to have those 2 trade lines. So let's look at it as an example that would get approved. So Ben, he had a score of a 580, but he had no adverse credit, meaning he didn't have any collections. He didn't have anything on his credit. His scores was only low because he had no trade lines that was reporting on his credit report, but he had nothing reporting late. He had no collections. And so what they did was they got alternative sources because he didn't have any trade lines reporting on his credit. So they had a landlord reference and a 12-month power bill were obtained. Now, they both said that both indicate that the payments was made as agreed. So his score is validated. He has a valid credit score, even though his score is under a 640. Now, Jerry has a 740. Now, if you have a score that is over a 640, you are able to have collection accounts that will get overlooked where you do not have to pay them back. So Jerry had 3 unpaid collections. Because both Ben and Jerry have acceptable scores, the loan approval officer can proceed with application processing. So that is just a few tips on things that can be done if you do not have a 640. And just remember, if you do have a 640, you are able to have collections on there without having to pay them back. And if you have 2 trade lines, you still need to have 2 trade lines that are reporting on your credit that can validate the score. If you do not have the 2 trade lines, that is okay, because as long as you have 2 to 3 alternative credits, you will still be approved. You can still be approved. With the 2, they will only need 2, like I said before, 2 alternative credit if you have like a landlord reference or rental verification. Or they would need 3 if you don't have a rental verification. Say, for instance, someone has a job and they're making about $20,000, but they live with their parent and they're trying to get their own home. You may not have a rental verification because it needs to be an actual landlord. But if you have 3 alternative sources, or if you've been paying all your bills on time and you have 2 trade lines that are reporting on your credit, but you don't have a 640, you can still get approved. But it's best to not have any collections at all on the account if you are under a 640. It's best to not have any collection. So here's a few tips. If you are at a 640, just make sure you have 2 trade lines. If you do not have any 2 trade lines, then you need to have between 3 alternative credit sources that have been paid on time within the last 12 months. And then if you don't have a 640, it is best to make sure that you do not have any collections, any delinquencies, meaning that you have been making on-time payments within the last 12 months on all of your accounts. You do not want to have any missed credit card payments or anything like that. You want to have everything paid within the last 12 months on time. And so it is best to have 2 trade lines that are reporting that has been open for 24 months and paid on time within the last 12 months. If you do not have the 640 and you have like a payment, a credit card payment that was late, or any payment that was late within the last 12 months report on your credit, they can still deny you because you have that reporting late on your account. So it is best to have all your payments paid on time, even if you do not have a 640. And that was within the last 12 months. Now, if you have collections and you may have a lump sum of money to be able to pay those collections before you apply, you can do that as well. That is a tip that you can do, because what happens is if you pay those collections, they will come off of your account. And as long as it's not going to continue to report on your credit score and it's just going to be wiped off, like deleted, then you have no worries when it comes to applying, because there's nothing that can show that you have that bad adverse credit, that you have that adverse credit. So if you want to pay everything off before you apply and it is no longer reporting on the credit report, that is good. And so that's one tip to take if you have under a 640. Another way where you are able to find your credit scores, if you want to know what your mortgage scores are, a website that you can go to is MyFico, MyFico.com. And there you can pay between $29.99 or $39.99 each month if you want to, or you can just pay for that first month and be able to see what your accurate mortgage scores are that are used by mortgage companies. Even mortgage companies and also USDA Direct uses the mortgage scores that are listed on MyFico. Those are your accurate mortgage scores. But when you log in and you register for an account, you can do it for 1 month and then you can cancel it at any time. Now, what you have to do is when you first log into MyFico, you don't just go to look at the regular FICO 8 that is showing. That's your FICO 8 scores. You have to go into your actual mortgage scores and you have to look at the mortgage scores. If you're trying to apply for a credit card, you can look at your bank scores. If you want to apply for an auto loan, you can look at your auto score. And those are your 3 scores. And most of the time, they're going to use the middle score. If you have 3 scores, they're going to use that middle score from the scores that you see on myfico.com. But make sure you are looking at the actual mortgage score. And please be sure to subscribe, because I will be posting a video on that as well, letting you know what is needed as far as getting the accuracy of your scores. So that way, when you apply for a mortgage, or even if you just apply with USDA Direct, you will be able to know what your actual scores is, because that is something that can be very difficult when you are going through different bank lenders and you do not know what your score is. Even with USDA Direct, you will be able to know that you are approved when you apply, as long as you have all of this information that you need and you know what your actual score is. It will be a lot easier to know what needs to be done. They also have exceptions to credit standards. So the rural development can make exceptions based on what your situation may be. If you have reduced shelter costs, like if it will reduce your shelter costs, they can approve you. If it is a temporary situation, something that happened based off you losing a job, or you were working 2 jobs and end up only working 1 and you couldn't pay it and it was out of your hands, like it was something that was out of your control and it became temporary, but then you resolved it once you was able to pay it, then they can make an exception for that. They also have, if it's a benefit to the government. So, like if the applicant may be delinquent on a federal debt, and by making the loan, the housing expenses will be reduced, allowing the applicant to take actions on the debt, which will benefit the government. So, they can make exceptions to your credit standards. And when I mean reduce shelter costs, meaning that if they approve you, which will give you a subsidy and help you to be able to pay your bills on time, then they can also approve you and make an exception if they see that it was out of your hands and you didn't make enough money to be able to make payments. But prior to that, everything was paid on time. Then they can kind of make an exception. If something happened, they can help you to get approved. Okay, so with the Section 502 direct loan, I showed you the eligibility and how you can go to that website and you can find out how much you may be eligible for based off your debt and things like that. Now, this is 100% financing without private mortgage insurance. And with this loan, they can do, most mortgages are 30 years. But with this loan, they can do 33 years. And they can also go up to as far as 38 years if the household adjusted income doesn't exceed 60% of the area median and a longer term is needed for repayment. You can also build a manufactured home if you want, find land and build a manufactured home as well and get a maximum of a 30-year term. Now, because they are giving you a longer term, they are able to give you more home. And then if you have a subsidy, you are also able to get more loan because your debt to income will be averaged based off of the subsidy that they would be using. So this helps you to be able to get the full maximum amount for that county. So I'm going to also show you the maximum of that county. Now, please be advised that if you do get a subsidy for this home, that they're going to basically put it on the back end of the mortgage. So basically what your average mortgage was supposed to be, like for instance, if your mortgage was supposed to be about $1,000, but then because you have low income, they give you the subsidy, it may end up being between $500 a month or $600 a month, depending on what your debt to income ratio is. So basically the difference that that difference of maybe like $400 each month that you are not paying for your regular mortgage, they will put on the back end of that mortgage. So they will also keep track of your income each year. You will have to update and let them know what your income is so that they can distinguish if you should still be getting the subsidy or if you can start paying the regular mortgage. But if you end up getting that subsidy for maybe 1 year or even 2 years, they will be able to put that on the back end. And so when you sell the home, you will basically have to pay that back. So just be advised of that. It's effective March 1st, 2021. The current interest rate for single family housing direct home loans is 2.50% for low and very low income borrowers. Okay, so as I was saying before, each county has different loan limits. So based off, this is the area loan limits here for each state. So depending on what state you live in and the county that you're in, you're able to get a certain amount. And this was just updated on February 1st, 2021, because the amounts do change. So let's just say that you are in Florida And what county should we use? Let's look up Columbia County. So if you are in Florida and you are in Columbia County, you are able to get up to $285,000, which is the maximum area loan amount. So that is the most that you can get, no matter what your income is, no matter if you make enough to get more than that, they will not give you more than that. Now, as you can see, some counties are ineligible because some counties are not considered rural areas. At one point, they may have been, but now they are no longer eligible. So that does change as well. But you are able to look at each state and see for each county what the maximum loan amount is. Now, you may get less than that, but you will not be able to get more than that loan amount for that area. You can get lower based off your debt to income ratio. So, this is how you apply for the program. Now, this is the USDA Direct, which is the Section 502 loan. Now, direct loan. Now, the thing is, you do not go through a bank to get approved for this. You will apply with the agency directly, the USDA Direct Office, Rural Development Office directly. So you can request that they mail you, or you can have them that they mail you an application, or you can have them email you an application. And then at any field office. And so when they mail it, you have to be able to include the documents that are on the form, that a form attachment 3J. So it will be everything on there listed on what you need to include with the application. And that's usually like bank statements, pay stubs, and like any explanation letters if you have anything on your credit or anything like that that is adverse or reporting late, like a collection or anything like that. Or you can apply online. Applying online is very convenient because if you apply online, you can be able to submit the documents that you need online to them, and it can go directly to their office if you apply online. But as I've said before, this is not user-friendly. So in order to register, it is possible to do. It just takes some time. And then sometimes if you do not have Adobe Reader, it may be complicated to be able to fill it out online. But with this, applying online, you're able to have things sent back to you directly from the office. And you can also send everything to them as far as uploading all of the documents that you need to send for attachment 3J. You will be able to use it and send all of the documents that you need directly and send it directly to the office if you apply online. But if you request by email or by mail, you can get the application, get the form, and send all of the documents that is needed with the form. And then they will also probably email you letting you know if you need to send anything else, because they have to check to see if you have any missing items within the first 3 business days of receiving your application. So they will basically let you know if you have anything missing or not. So I would advise that you either email them to get an application so that you can converse with them via email. And then you can also apply online. I think that is best to apply online because you are able to send items to the office directly. So they will let you know if you have any missing items within the first 3 days. And if you don't, then they will proceed with your application. And if you do have any missing items, then you will need to submit those documents to them within 15 days. Or your application will be withdrawn. And you also have to send a credit reporting fee. So if it's 2 applicants, then each person will have to send a credit application, a credit reporting fee, so that they can run your credit. And then you will also need to have a homeowner education program requirement. And so you can do that online. You can take the classes online. You can register and pay a one-time fee, and you can do everything online, and you would just take a final test at the end. But that is not usually done into right before, like right when you get approved, but you can do it beforehand and have it already done. And then they will give you a certificate at the end. So you can do that while you're still waiting for them to approve you. Now, the thing about the process is, as far as getting approved, it does take time. So it may take longer than 30 days. It can take up to months before you hear back from them. It can take 3 months before you hear anything back from them. Oh, this process can take very long. But as I said, you are able to get a house built from the ground up. You're able to get a new construction home that was just built, or you're able to get an older home. I think it is best to get a new construction home a lot of the times if you can afford it, because that passes with the inspections. Because that's another video that I will have to do when it comes to inspections and when it comes to the appraisal. So they are very, very thorough when it comes to the inspections. But if you have a newer home, then you can pass a lot more, because if you have an older home, there are going to be a lot of things that they're going to request to be done before they let the inspection pass. So be sure to subscribe, because I will be doing another video. I just wanted to include the application process, what you can do to apply, and I wanted to give you the tips on what you can do to get approved. But in my next video, I will be also letting you know more information about this program. So please be sure to subscribe and have an awesome day.